right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. If you've been tuning in with us this month, you know it is one of our favorite months. Every February here, we kick all the men out and we host Women in Science and Exploration all month long. There are still more events to come, including 4 events on the last day of February. So we're going to push things right to the very end. And then, of course, we'll be releasing our March event soon. So if you visit exploringbytheseat.com, you can find all those events coming up and how to register and all of that fun stuff with your classrooms. So always great when we get an opportunity to go live into the field, and the more remote, the better. And I think today we're definitely going to one of the most remote places on the planet. We are going to spend some time with Keri Nelson, who has worked in Antarctica as a contractor for the United States Antarctic program for 15 years at different bases all around the continent. So she has done a ton of different jobs, from running station stores to managing the post office at the South Pole, hosting tourists, and tons of other duties to make sure the stations are running smoothly. And it's such a great way to show that even without a science background, you can still have a big impact on science operations around the world, whether it's at stations in the Antarctic or on ships or field stations in the rainforest, all kinds of things like that. There are non-traditional career paths that can lead you to some really cool experiences. So let's bring Keri in live with us right now from Palmer Station. Hi, Keri. How are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing great. How are you doing, Joe?
Good, good. It's great to see you. Great to see you outside. I know the weather was being a little tricky the last couple of days, but for coming from one of the most remote places on the planet, you're looking pretty good down there, nice and clear.
Fantastic. I'm so happy to be talking to you. I'm so happy to be talking to all of the students in all of these classrooms across North America. Hi, guys. Thank you for spending some of your time of the day with me and with Joe learning about Antarctica. It is one of my favorite places in the world. I can't believe that I get to come down here for work. I want to let you know that that could be part of your future, too. It's not something that's out of hand or out of the realm of possibility. And definitely, if you're interested in science and you've got your research hat on and that's something that you want to do, go for it. But I'm here to represent people who never did get a science degree and show that there are some ways to do some really interesting things in life through really non-traditional paths. So thanks for welcoming me. I want to talk to you a little bit about what I'm up to down here and what we do down here. And then I'm going to play a little video I put together so you can see what Antarctica looks like in this part of Antarctica, which is the Antarctic Peninsula. Very different part of Antarctica than the South Pole, where you might see some pictures coming from the South Pole, or from McMurdo Station, which is America's biggest base and also in a very different region of Antarctica. So it's a really big continent. One place is not the same as the other. As Joe mentioned, I've been working in Antarctica for about 15 years. My first job here was a janitor. I was cleaning toilets. I was sweeping floors. I'd come out of that from doing television news reporting for several years and then working as a registered nurse for several years, and then just took a job down here doing random jobs because I really love the place. So I mentioned that I'm at one of basically 3 science bases that the United States runs. I know that there are classrooms all over the world who watch these videos. So we are one of many countries doing a lot of exciting work on this continent. And if you're interested in, if you're from another country, and you just take a little look on the internet and see what you're up to. And I don't want to leave out Canada because I know there's a lot of Canadian students here. So hi, Canada. And while Canada does not have a permanent research base in Antarctica, Canadians are extremely important to what the work that's done down here. There's a company called Ken Boric Air that's based out of Calgary, and they move people around to field camps all over this continent for many nations, not just for the US government, but for many of the nations doing scientific research down here. So we couldn't do it without Canadians. So thanks guys. We need some good bush pilots who know what they're doing to come in and show us how it's done. And if you've ever heard of things like medevacs happening or people having to get into Antarctica in the middle of the winter, it's probably Canadian pilots who are getting in and really putting themselves at risk to make some things happen. So it's a very international effort down here, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. The other thing that I just wanted to say is that an artist who is working down here named Karen Romano Young does these great comics and illustrations about Antarctica and about people working in Antarctica and people working in science. And she does a website called iwasaKid.com. And so for parents watching or teachers watching, this is a great place you can go to and look and be inspired by. You don't have to know what you're doing right now, guys, sitting in these classrooms. You don't have to choose it even when you graduate high school. Pick a job that you think is cool, check it out, and you can do a lot of things in your life. So I hope that you remember that and don't feel too much pressure to pick the exact thing that you want to do right now. Before I really questions or talk much more, I put together a video that I wanted to show you so you can see what I see when I'm down here. And maybe Joe will be good enough to play that video now, and then I'll come back and we'll take some questions.
My life in Antarctica has been like over the last 15 years or so. I've spent quite a bit of time down here now in 3 locations. You can see them on this map. I am currently located at Palmer Station, which is just below South America. It's partway down the Antarctic Peninsula. There's a lot of nations that have their bases kind of along the Antarctic Peninsula. It's one of the easiest areas of Antarctica to access. And there we are on Anvers Island. It's about a 4.5-day crossing for us from Punta Arenas, Chile, down to Palmer Station. It can be a rocky ride, and I'll show you some pictures of that coming up. But I also wanted to show you this map of Antarctica to show you really how big it is. This is the United States. You can see Antarctica's mass would go up even bigger than the U.S. and up into Canada. And so it can be really different as Florida can be from the north of Canada. Antarctica has a lot of different regions and temperatures and things going on in it. Here's Palmer Station. This is where I'm at right now. The smallest of the 3 United States bases. We have maybe 40 or 50 people in the summer, maybe 20-something people in the winter. It's a year-round base, and there's the view outside my bedroom window that I wake up to every morning, which is pretty special. Not unhappy to see that at all. We sit across Arthur Harbor from a glacier called the Mare Piedmont Glacier. At one time, this was the water source for Palmer Station, but it's receded so much that it can't be that way anymore. We get our water directly from the ocean. And there's a lot of ocean around us, which is cool. It makes for transport on the water pretty special sometimes. But here's our research vessel that we arrive on. This is the Lawrence M. Gold, and look at that water. That's the Drake Passage. You would definitely not want to be on that deck when that was happening. Sometimes it's a smoother ride, but often it can be pretty rocky and rolly. We'll take time to look for icebergs on the way down with these spotlights at night, which is pretty cool to see, and arrive here on the Antarctic Peninsula. Gorgeous view. This is what you would see if you came down on a boat ride and were a tourist down here. Candy-colored skies sometimes. It's just really, really pretty. I love to see it when it looks like this. And there we are at our little station. We do a lot of water-based research here. Other parts of the program do different kinds of research, but we really concentrate on what's going on in the ocean around us. So here we are measuring some of the statistics about what's going on in the water down at depth. Here I am out looking for whale tags with some whale researchers. That's something that I never thought that I would get to do in my life. This is a little glider that will release into the water and can collect data, and we pick it up and read what the data said. Here we are looking for Antarctica's largest year-round animal. What do you think the largest animal that lives here year-round on land is? It's not what you think. It's this. It's a little midge. These are tinier than you think. I'm going to show you a picture in a second of it on someone's hand. That's the largest year-round animal in Antarctica, which is pretty cool, I think, or at least on land animal. We also see a lot of other animals you recognize, though. We have these Gen 2 penguins that come swimming around sometimes. This is an Adelie penguin. There's chin-strap penguins, too. So, of course, Antarctica is known for its penguins, and we do get to see a lot of them here at Palmer Station, which is pretty fun to see. They're pretty cute. We also get to see these guys. These are little fur seals. They're just coming back to this area right now. They're like playful puppy dogs with personalities like puppy dogs. They like to play with each other quite a bit all the time. We also see other kinds of seals. These are crab-eater seals. They're a little more chill. And this big guy, big old elephant seal, I saw him this year cruising in front of these penguins. They're huge. And what about this guy? Look at him. That is a leopard seal. He was hanging around our floating dock. But these guys, are known for being very fast. They're predators in this area, and they're really cool to watch. We also get to see a lot of whales down here if we're lucky. These are humpback whales coming right past our station. And the wildlife does even come onto our station footprint, and we just kind of leave them alone, let them do what they want to do. They're pretty cute. They don't seem bothered by us at all. They do their thing, walk around, check things out, head back in the water, maybe come back again. Animal life is pretty prevalent here at Palmer Station. Even these guys were playing at our dock, kind of chasing the sheathbills up the ramp. That sheathbill was not in danger. We also get to see a lot of glacier calving here, which is kind of sad to see because this glacier is really falling away very quickly, but it's really dramatic to see when it happens in front of us. And sometimes some cool icebergs. I thought that icebergs were just one block of ice, but it turns out they take all of these different kinds of cool shapes. This is a tabular iceberg. Sometimes these guys last for months or even years, and we see them come back around, disappear for a while, come back around. And sometimes it's a little sad to watch them crumble in front of us because they're just kind of losing their mass and losing their majesty. You also don't want to be very close to the shore when this happens because, of course, it sends up huge waves that could hurt you, but from a distance, they're very cool to see. Like I said, we do a lot of travel on the water here. A lot of our data is gathered here. We get between islands. This is one of our bigger boats that we go out to collect some data on. And I even get to drive around sometimes, which is pretty cool. And sometimes the nights are just beautiful. Gorgeous, reflective colors like you couldn't believe. Sunsets that light up the entire sky. We even get rainbows here at Palmer Station. It's warm enough that happens sometimes. But it is Antarctica, so there are gale force winds blowing snow off a mountain. Here's more winds that we have to sometimes get to lunch in. 68 knots, that's pretty fast winds. The snow's blowing sideways. Hurts your face to walk outside. We walk on these boardwalks. And yeah, you could get really hurt if you didn't dress for Antarctica in the right way. So it's something to very much pay attention to when you're down here. And we do plan ahead and wear the right clothes, so we're okay in this. And when it's nice out, there's a lot of fun things that we can do down here too. I like to go hiking, that we can do some skiing, and there's some snowshoeing that happens around here when the backyard has enough snow in the early season. So a lot of my time is spent doing stuff like this. Sometimes the snow melts off and then it's just more of a little hike around. And yeah, we can sleep out in this little Ruck hut, which is a cozy little camping place, not that far from station, but it feels like you get away. You have a great view of the glacier. You can tuck in, a couple people can sleep out there, and it's nice to feel away. And of course there's snow, so we have fun with the snow. This was a station-wide snowball fight we had one year, which was a lot of fun. We also just slide down gentle slopes on our cardboard sleds, or just on our tushies in general. Of course, if you have snow, you're going to slide down it. And even make some little snow sculptures, snowmen, snow women, snow people hanging out. I wanted to show you this too because there's green in Antarctica, especially on the peninsula, and more and more green as time goes by and the earth warms up down here. But it's not just white and blue that you see down here. It's very common to see colors like this. I even saw mushrooms one year, which I was not expecting to see in Antarctica. Hey Antarctica friends, I'm out here doing one of my favorite things, which is hiking around in our backyard from Palmer Station. And I just came across something pretty cool, which is a glacier marker from 1984. Long ago, Palmer Station used to get its water from this glacier, and now I want to show you how far it's receded since 1984. So here we go. Here is this glacier marker that was put here by some nice person in 1984. And that is where the glacier has receded to now in 2022. And forgive the long shot, but I'm just going to show you that Palmer Station, way down there, used to be fed water by this glacier. That was the water source. It bumped right up against station. So this is the expanse that the glacier has moved since Palmer was built in the 1960s. And this is as far as it's gone back since 1984. That's some glacier recession for you. So we are seeing climate change, a lot of climate change in this part of Antarctica. But now I'm going to take you to McMurdo Station down at the bottom. That is a place that we get to by flying from Christchurch, New Zealand. And it's further south than Palmer. And it's a lot colder than Palmer Station. And everything is bigger at McMurdo Station. The population is huge. The town is huge. I've been here with more than 1,000 people at a time. The mountains across the way are twice as big as the mountains around Palmer Station. There are many, many buildings at McMurdo Station. A lot's going on here. We sit in the shadow of Mount Erebus, which is the southernmost active volcano. Sometimes in the winter, you can see a glow at the top of it. And we do kind of mix history and modern day work. This is a historic hut you see. This is Mount Discovery that sits on the footprint of McMurdo Station. This is where Scott and Shackleton both used this hut. This is Cape Heavens, another historic hut that's in this area on Ross Island. I want to show you, what it looks like to get down there. We get on this U.S. Air Force plane that brings us down on a C-17, about a 5-hour flight down. And when you get off of that flight, oh my gosh, get ready for cold to hit you hard, maybe wind if you're lucky. A lot of noise, a lot of just kerfuffle in general. Some of us will go straight to work off of this plane. Others of us get maybe a day to kind of acclimate, and then we're off to the races. It's a lot of hard work when you're in these programs, but really valuable. I think people enjoy the time, and we get a lot out of doing the work. So that's what it's like getting down there. Like I said, it's a different place than Palmer Station. There is open water sometimes. Right now we're on frozen water on the ice shelf. I think we're looking at the last look at sun before it closes down, before we don't see it again for the winter. But those mountains are huge. Those are the Transantarctic Mountains. They're beautiful. And this is the weather that can happen at McMurdo Station. This is called Condition 1. We have to use rope lines to go from between buildings when this is happening. Can be pretty crazy. And I also want to show you, we do see another kind of animal here, which is emperor penguins. We don't see those at Palmer Station. Oops, and I misedited that, but that's another look at some of the weather that we see when we're at McMurdo Station. So it can be pretty intense. I wanted to show you this. It is 112 Fahrenheit below wind chill right now, 80 below Celsius. And I've got a glass of boiling hot water. I'm going out into the cold to see what happens.
So let's check it out. Water. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Just a phenomenon that happens if it's cold enough. And I just wanted to show you this because you don't have to be a scientist to come to Antarctica. I started out working there as a janitor. Even today, I'm doing some things like moving drinks around. These are not things that necessarily require science degrees. So you can also work at one of these stations. Now we're going to go to the South Pole, right in the middle. Where's the South Pole? It's exactly at the South Pole. Looks different than either of these stations. This is on the polar plateau, and it is flat, and it is white, 360 degrees around. Once you've seen it, you've kind of seen it. But here we are at the ceremonial South Pole. There's actually 2 South Poles at South Pole Station. One's for pretty pictures, and the other one is completely accurate and relocated every year as our station kind of slides on an ice sheet away from the South Pole. So here I am at the actual South Pole, or what it was that year at the actual South Pole. The next picture is one of my favorites because I'm in all the time zones at once. I can run around the world at the South Pole pretty easily. So that's pretty cool. But very flat, very white, just a remarkable place to really be. I think that it looks like frozen waves, actually. If you were on an ocean and the ocean was a little bit choppy and it froze into place, that's what the South Pole looks like to me. 360 degrees around. They do a lot of astrophysics and cosmology there because the conditions are really right for a good look at the sky. And I wanted to show you this because this is Ken Borek Air for the Canadians out there. Here's where Canada is really helping move all sorts of people all over this continent, and it's super cool. So could you visit Antarctica? Well, you can. Take a cruise down. That's probably the easiest way to come down through South America. And if you're on a small enough cruise ship and it's non-COVID times, we do welcome some visitors to Palmer Station. We also go out to some of the boats, climb up the side. I thought this was wild when we did this, and do presentations and talk to all the people who are on the bigger cruise ships that can't come in. So here I am talking about Palmer Station to people on this cruise ship. And yeah, that's kind of another interesting thing that we do down here as part of our work at Palmer Station. And I'll just say the other way to come down here is to work, not to travel. And this is a map of all of the nation's bases that they have. Some are year-round, some are not year-round. But many, many people, thousands of people are working down here every year. And that's something that could be a reality for you in your future, too. So I hope you enjoyed this video.
All right, so I'm back, and there's a lot of directions I could go and keep talking. I'll just point out one thing behind me, which is you see the glacier. That's that Piedmont Glacier I showed you before, and there's a little island. It might be hard to see on this camera. You see the little brown rocks starting to emerge, and we noticed this island for the first time in 2014. So up to 2014, that glacier face was all the way covering that island. And that island has really emerged in less than a decade. And that is one of many islands around our area that we're starting to see. We didn't know they were islands before. So we are really seeing the effects of melting and receding glaciers here, like people are in the north also and all around Antarctica. But it's something to watch. It's pretty sobering to see. And I could talk about a lot of things, but maybe it's time to take some questions so I can tell you things that you might actually be interested in instead of me just blah, blah, blahing. So, Joe, do you have a good way of going about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Keri. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being out there today. Let's get a question out of the way right away because I know this is going to come from students. What's the temperature like there for you today?
Oh, yes. Temperature today is about, I looked right before we started talking, 1.2 Celsius, about 34 degrees Fahrenheit, and maybe 12 knots wind right now. So it's not super, it gets chillier here, but it also has gotten warmer here. We hit 52 Fahrenheit this year. It tied a
Wow.
record one of the days, which is what I think 18 C or something like that. So that's not what we want to hear about what's happening for temperature down in this part of the world, but it's the reality of what's going on.
All right. Well, we're going to start meeting some classrooms now, Keri. If you're tuning in via YouTube, you can use that chat sidebar, say hi, send your questions in there. We've got classrooms joining us from Alaska, New York, Alberta, where else?
Everyone.
Ontario, Michigan, Colorado, Connecticut, California. So we've got a great group with us today. And I do want to give a special shout out. We had 2 classes in Michigan who were going to be on camera with us, but they got snowed out today. So they'll probably watch it maybe if they can go back to school tomorrow. Yeah, we're thinking about you, Michigan crew, and hopefully you get to watch the video tomorrow. So let's start meeting some of our.
I grew up in Minnesota, so I know snow days.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start meeting some of our camera classrooms. I want to go to Alaska first. We've got some 4th graders joining us in Alaska. I'm going to bring them into the call here. There they are.
Hi,
hey,
guys.
4th graders. How are you?
Hello. Good to see you. You guys look great.
All right. Who's got a question for us?
Does someone want to ask the question about the saltwater? We're coming.
That's okay.
Introduce yourself, say your name.
I'm Troy, and what is the coldest temperature at Palmer Station ever been?
Okay. Oh, I don't know if I know what the coldest temperature has ever been, but I will tell you the Palmer Station, I say it's not really like this, but I always kind of say it's kind of like the Florida of Antarctica. We are really far north compared to like the South Pole. And so it doesn't get as cold here as you would think. I think maybe it would get 10, 15 below Fahrenheit. Boy, I wish I spoke Celsius because I feel like a really dork right now. But it'll get colder in Alaska probably than it will get at Palmer Station. Now, if you're talking about the South Pole Station, there it can often get 100, 110 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. That is really, really cold. And those guys get super cold. We get somewhat cold here, but it's all surrounded by ocean and we're on an island. And while it freezes in, we're still going to feel a little bit of temperate temperatures here. It's a great question, though. Thank you for asking it. I also want to say there's a bunch of Alaskans working at Palmer Station right now, working very hard out of Anchorage. A crew from Anchorage is building us a new pier right now. So they'll be happy that there was a classroom from Alaska here.
All right. Looks like someone else. Let's grab one more camera. Is that someone else coming up? One more question?
Oh, yeah. You got a question. Okay.
I'm Haley Heitman, and I have a question. How many penguins do you see?
How many penguins do I see? Palmer Station, I see more penguins than I've been able to count. Sometimes I will see them at a time, but we can see huge colonies of penguins sometimes where I couldn't even count how many. One thing that's happening here is we've had a penguin colony of Adelie penguins that's really not been doing very well. Maybe in 1980 there were 19,000 nesting pairs of penguins. right around Palmer Station. And the last time I heard numbers, which was a couple years ago, it was 1900. There's been a 90% reduction in that colony. That said, other penguins that are like warmer weather are moving into this area and kind of taking the place of the Adelie penguins. So more penguins than I can count. More penguins than I can count here.
All right. Well, Alaska, great questions. We might have time to come back and visit you again. So if you have one more, have that question ready. Before I go to our next camera classroom, there's someone joining on YouTube. I think it's probably somebody who's been down at the station before. This is Amy, and Amy wants to know, what's the menu like today?
What's the menu like today? Well, today I had a really great meal of Indian curry. We had some chana masala and some tikka chicken, tandoori chicken, and some yogurt sauce. It was pretty great. We eat very well here, and it's a trick to not eat too much so our jeans don't fit.
All right, very cool. Well, I'm going to grab our next camera group here. Miss Brown's class is hanging out with us. They are in, looks like they're joining us from Alberta. Let me bring Miss Brown in. It's a virtual crew, so Miss Brown's representing her class today. Hey, Miss Brown.
Hello. Hi. We have a few
Hello.
questions. We were wondering, hi, great presentation. Thank you. Have you ever had frostbite? And also, what do you find is the hardest job there?
Oh, okay. Well, have I ever had frostbite? Thankfully, no. We work really hard to make sure that doesn't happen to us, and have a lot of classes, even every year when we come in, to try to prevent us from getting in that situation. There are times I think that has been a reality for people who have been working in Antarctica, and that is not. It's not a fun thing to happen. It's really painful for people, and sometimes people lose fingers or even more than fingers. But happily, that hasn't ever happened to me. What is the hardest job in Antarctica? Gosh, there's there's a lot of people who work really hard, and I think that there are difficult aspects of every job. I think that I've just been watching some of my people who work in waste and have to work with very smelly, rotting food sometimes, or bulky things that they have to get rid of, and they work really, really hard. So I think that would be a difficult job to have. Not all of the jobs are big headline kinds of jobs. Anything that you can think of that happens in a city or town to make it go are jobs that are happening down here. So I really respect a lot of the hard work that people do, and a lot of those people are janitors, people who move waste. Our chefs work really hard. They can't ever take a break because they've got deadlines 3 times a day. So a lot of credit to the hardworking people down here. Thanks for your questions.
All right, great questions from our crew in Alberta. We'll see if we can swing back one more time. Let's grab another question here. See a few people saying hi from places like Abu Dhabi. Andrea's in Abu Dhabi.
Oh gosh, hi everyone.
Yeah, we've got Ricky saying hi. We've got Laura in Colorado, says it's colder there today in Colorado.
It probably is. It's pretty warm here right now. It was raining today. That's how warm it is. So
yeah. So I'm going to grab this question here from YouTube. And this question is, what brought you to the polar regions in the first place?
I think what brought me to the polar regions is maybe something that will bring maybe just even one of the students watching today, but I just heard about it. I heard about it and thought, wow, I never knew that I could come to Antarctica and work. And if I could pay money to go to Antarctica or get somebody to pay me money to be in Antarctica, I think I like the choice where somebody pays me to be in Antarctica. So I heard about it and then tucked it away in the back of my mind and said, someday I'm going to do that. And a few years later, I was able to arrange my work life. So I was able to take a contract, and I kind of haven't looked back because I've just continued to be so interested in working in a place like this. So, so that is how I got into doing this profession. Sorry, was there another question that you just asked me there? I've lost it.
No, it was just, what inspired you to go to the polar regions in the first place? It's easy to see why you stayed. It's absolutely beautiful and incredible, from the snowball fights to the sunsets to the glaciers and the leopard seals. It looks amazing.
Yeah, I think that I just have always wanted to Well, I mean, I've told the story before, but when I was probably a fifth grader, one of our class assignments, I remember this very distinctly, was writing our own obituary. Like if we had an obituary, somebody we we passed, we weren't on this earth anymore. What would we want people to say about our lives? And I remember writing out, well, what do I want my life to be? And I just thought, I want to have a really interesting life that doesn't make sense in my obituary. Like she did that, and then she did what? And that didn't make sense. And that doesn't sound right at all. I wanted to build that story for myself. So I think every instinct I have is to go for things that are kind of off the beaten path. Because why not? We get one time around on this life, students. You know what I mean? Make it interesting and do things that interest you in this life. You get to decide. You get to decide what you want to do. So make some decisions, try out some things. They might not all work out, but who cares? Then you try something else. I really hope that
Absolutely.
that's something that you can take with you.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with an unconventional career path. If you choose science, there's no right or wrong way to get into it. There's all kinds of stories of people
Yeah.
following their curiosity and ending up doing something they never thought in a million years they'd be doing.
And you don't
Very-
have to live an off the beaten path life to have a really great life too. You know, there's some paths that we know you can have a really great life doing that too. But just be your own story. Don't live a story that somebody else thinks you should live. Choose that for yourself if you want to do that.
All right, very cool. We're going to jump to another camera classroom here. We've got Miss Wood's crew hanging out with us. They are coming from Bradford, Ontario. So here in Canada, looks like some grade 7s. I'm going to pop them into the call here. Hey, grade 7s.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Our class is wondering what your favorite pastime is or what activities or games you're able to do.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. So it kind of depends at what station I'm at, what I'm doing. But I spend a lot of my time at all the places doing music because I like to play music and I like to write music. So I even spend some of we only get to bring so many pounds of luggage down, but I spend a lot of that weight on my guitar or a little keyboard that I have. And then when I'm at a bigger station, like I showed you that McMurdo Station where there's 1,000 people there sometimes, then we can make bands and we do performance for bands. And here I just write my own music and play my own music. There's a lot of people here who like to paint and draw. We have an art show coming up at the end of this week where people have made this beautiful art and we're going to go see what people have made throughout the season. At some of the stations that are a little bit bigger, there's gyms where you can actually be in a volleyball league or be in a basketball league. Love to hike. I do a ton of hiking and I take a lot of pictures. I post on social media. Simply Antarctica is the social media account where I put all of my pictures that I take. So those are things that keep my head busy when I'm not at work.
All right. Great question from our crew in Ontario. Let's see if they have another one because we're going to swing by the classrooms again. So if they have another one in Ontario, we can grab that now or I can come back in a minute if you need to get organized.
1 minute.
Yep. Okay. So a couple more highs coming in via the chat. Aaliyah Green is saying hi. They miss you at McMurdo. So that's pretty cool. You've got
Hi, Leah.
people viewing.
I'll miss you guys too.
And M. Biss is saying hi from your hometown. Hey, Keri, from your hometown. So that's cool.
Oh, hello, hometown, Minnesota. Love out to Minnesota.
All right. Awesome. Well, let's go back to our Alaska crew and see if our 4th graders have one more question for us. I'll bring them into the call now. There we go. What do you think, 4th graders? You have another question?
Yes, I think we have one more question.
Perfect.
Say a little bit and introduce yourself. You can look right there.
I'm Sadie, and how do you drink the salt water from the ocean?
That's a really great question. I realized I didn't say much explanation of that. We actually pull it in a pipe and then it's a process called reverse osmosis where we just basically purify the water and then we drink the water after it's purified. So we don't drink straight salt water. And I saw you guys comment on that. You're right. Thanks for catching me on that. It doesn't make sense that we would drink it right out of the ocean. It goes through a little bit of a process, but it's not melting from the glacier.
All right. Good question from our 4th grade crew.
Great question.
They want to know if you would like to see how high the snow is out our window. I don't know if we can or not.
I definitely want to see how high the snow is. Oh my goodness, you guys, are you having fun? Are you out like making forts and like playing in the
fun?
snow? I love snow.
We have 2 layers of ice, and like 10 feet of snow probably.
Oh my
They're having
gosh.
fun.
That is a
Yeah,
lot of
snow is so
snow.
much fun. I'm glad that you guys have snow to play in. I think it's just super fun to have snow around when you're a kid.
All right. Well, fourth graders, thanks for the great questions and thanks for showing us the snow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. Let's go back to Alberta. See if we can grab another question from our crew, our grade 5-6 explorers.
Hello, we want to know, are there foxes there? And have you noticed any new species of wildlife?
Ooh. Have I noticed any new species? I don't think there are necessarily new species of wildlife, but there are. First of all, let's start with the foxes question. There are no foxes here. And at one time, way, way back when there were the early explorers or even the crews that started working here in the 60s, 70s, they had a lot of dogs, like huskies down here. They were working dogs and they used them as part of the activities that were done in Antarctica. But at a certain point, all of the nations working in Antarctica got together and said, look, we want to make sure that we're not changing the environment down here by what we bring down. And so they've designated any animal that's not native to Antarctica as an invasive species. And so the puppies had to get shipped off of the continent, and that not native to Antarctica had to be removed from the continent. So at that point, it's just the Antarctic animals. However, the climate is changing, and there may be animals that are coming to Antarctica or more of that kind of animal than there were in the past. The Adelie penguin is a good example of a penguin that really likes colder conditions. It likes a lot of sea ice, and as this part of Antarctica warms, it's not as great of a place for them. But there are other penguins that are coming in. We would have seen these Gentoo penguins or these chinstrap penguins. Before, there would have been a few of them, but now more and more of those kinds of penguins are coming down. And I think there's other bird life that may find that it's a lot nicer if you're that kind of bird to be around this part of the peninsula now that it's warming up. But I don't know the big animals like foxes or polar bears or anything like that that has made their way down here for that reason. Great question.
All right. I've got another question here in the chat. This one's about climate change. So you mentioned glacier, you can see it receding. You mentioned things like the Adelie penguins who are moving because of the changes. Is there anything else in the time that you've been coming to Antarctica that you've noticed that's different? Anything else that's changing?
Well, I do know that when you look at McMurdo Station, so that's the second station that I showed you, the one that is you leave through New Zealand to go get to, that's not quite the South Pole, that for years and years and years, they've had, so there's ice in Antarctica. There's lots of kinds of ice in Antarctica. There's ice that has been held to the continent for ever. It's very thick. It's very strong. And then there's ice that floats away sometimes and then reforms and floats away and reforms. And so on the more permanent ice shelf, for years, we've tried to build airfields, places where actually planes can come in and land, and we've been able to use those airfields for decades as part of the program. And now those airfields, well, they're not always as certain in the same places that they were before. So the multi-year sea ice isn't behaving in the way that it has before, and it makes it trickier to build those airfields. So that's one place where I know that just from a pragmatic standpoint, that I am seeing change. Everybody in the program is seeing change, and just the way that we do business, it changes in that way too. So there's one pretty obvious place that we're seeing change.
All right. And then, Keri, how much longer is this time at Palmer going to last? And then are you planning on returning back to Antarctica after that?
I would never want to say that I was done with Antarctica. I think my heart will break a little bit at that point. Antarctica is a really special place in my heart. The time that I leave Palmer right now is a little bit in flux because we're building a new pier, which is really exciting. It's going to help us continue to do science down here for a long time. It's great, but we're not really quite sure of that timeline yet. And my departure will depend, I think, greatly on when that ends. But sometime between May and July is when I'm going to be leaving. And I arrived here. We began isolating to come down here in September and arrived at Palmer Station in October. So I've been gone for a long time this time. This has turned into quite a long deployment. If you do a straight up South Pole summer, you might only be at the South Pole for 3-4 months. You can get in and out of Antarctica really quickly, but sometimes you're here for a long time.
All right. Well, Keri, maybe one last thing before we start to sign off for today. I know we don't have a huge view, but can you pan around a little bit just to give us another kind of
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me show you. You're not going to be able to see a ton here, but I'll just go as far as I can. So this is GWR. That is the building I live in, and our buildings are all connected by boardwalks. You see our Zodiacs parked up there because our pier is, again, under construction. They usually be parked down below. And people always wonder what's in the pipes. Lots of things that carries our electricity, heat, all the things that need to be carried around a station. There's the Piedmont Glacier behind us, and Dietrich Island. Out, if we go this way, you're going to see, ooh, if I can keep doing this, you see that little tug out there? They're the ones who tug down the barge that they're using to base some of our pier operations off of. But because it's supposed to get a little bit swelly in water, they are parked out there so they don't bump up against the barge. There's our directional sign that you can see pictures taken of. And then there's another building right there that is called our bio lab. And that's where all of our water-based science takes place, in the bottom of that building. It's also where we eat, and it's also where we half of us live in that building. So half of us live in each of those buildings. So that's what Palmer Station looks like. It's a place that's really special to me. I feel really privileged to have spent the amount of time I've spent here.
All right. Well, Keri, I want to start off with a huge shout out to the crew who joined us on YouTube. I know there were classrooms. I know there were some individuals. I think some of them maybe follow you on Instagram or have worked with you at different polar stations. So great to see everybody joining in and all the shout outs.
Thanks for watching.
And then a huge shout out to our camera crews, our classrooms who joined us. So Alaska, Alberta, Ontario, and then of course a shout out to our Michigan crews who are digging out maybe at home, but hopefully they'll get to watch the event tomorrow. So great to see everybody. And Keri, what a treat. Thank you for taking us to Palmer Station. Thank you so much for a glimpse into your life, a life at a station. It looks like a lot of fun, whether you're doing science or working one of the other really important jobs that are needed for these stations to run. Like great opportunities in Antarctica.
It really is. And I just want to say thank you to you and to all of the teachers, but especially to all you guys out there who are students sitting in your classrooms, just trying to take in the world through these feeds that we do. I just keep feeding what makes you curious, because it's hard to go wrong in this life if you follow your head in that way. So just there's no right answers in what you do in your future. Just keep at it and you'll find something good.
All right. And I know Karen is tuning in live with us today. You mentioned Karen and her great site, iwasakid.com. Yes. I'm going to put that link back up on the screen one more. You can find some great pages for an amazing group of scientists and non-scientists alike. Great comics, great media to learn more about these exciting careers and what led them on those paths. So do take some time and visit iwasakid.com. And then we'll be doing more events over the next few months with more of those who are featured in those comics, in that media on the I Was a Kid site. So do check that out. We're looking forward to those. Keri, wow, what a blast. What a great connection. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great to see you. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, keep up the great work down there. It looks like you're having lots of fun.
You too. Thanks for the site, Joe. It's really fantastic. I am impressed by the great things that you offer for classrooms here.
All right. Thank you so much, Keri. Have a great rest of the week, everybody. And we'll see you in another event soon.
Bye,
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.